All right, folks. Here we go. We're going to get started right now. Just going to do my regular sound check while I wait for my hordes of happy viewers to join me. I wouldn't call them happy. Most of them are pretty cranky, actually, which is fine. I'd be cranky too. I am cranky, in fact. Cranky a lot these days. Really cranky. Pretty cynical, actually. A little torqued, kind of at everything and everyone. And maybe by the end of this, we'll have some idea of why. I don't know. Maybe you'll join me. So my name is Dr. Anthony Horvath. I'm the host of the Gutencast. The Gutencast is a production of gutenbookpress.com. It's the publishing company that I own. We publish authors, many of whom have been our guests in previous episodes. But today I'm flying solo. But if you want to support this podcast, obviously you can write me a big fat check. But generally speaking, I just ask people to check out gutenbookpress.com and see if there's any books that they like and buy them. Buy as many as they possibly can. In fact, like, subscribe, all that other stuff. So enough of that. When you're flying solo, like I am tonight, you can kind of do whatever you want. You don't got to worry about guests coming in. And it looks like I did my audio check. Everything's looking good. There's a ton of material to cover tonight, and man, it's overwhelming to me. I don't even know where to start. So how about I kind of start with a general overview of the premise of tonight's podcast, even if sometimes it's hard to see the point. Here it basically is. When we look at the world that's out there, it's very easy to see division everywhere. Everything's in binary terms: right versus left, Republican versus Democrat. Sometimes male versus female. We have a lot of that, and people divide up into groups based on that. And of course, this is a massive generalization, right? But the idea behind tonight's podcast is that these categories are not quite right. Yeah, sure, the left is often pitted against the right, and maybe there's some good reasons for that, but actually, probably in most cases, a person on the left, I would be considered on the right, even though I'm strongly libertarian. Anyway, I'm already sidetracking myself a little bit. I think maybe a conversation could be had, and you could find some shared agreement between myself and someone on the left, and we would find out actually that the real opponents that we face is a completely different category, one that a group of people that are not often named, rarely identified. They don't usually get media treatment. They're certainly not taught about in schools. Yeah, right. No, not going to be taught about in schools. Not in these terms anyway. But they are moving and shaking things. They are engineering society to be in a certain way, and most of us are falling for it. In other words, one group of humans has set themselves against the rest of us and is manipulating and trying to achieve certain agendas, whether we like it or not. And certainly they must not think that we're going to like it because they don't want us to know about it. Give me just 1 second. I left on a source of sound I don't want on. Just a second. I blame Jamie. But where do we start? Where do we start with this? Well, I think we're going to start. There's a million places we could start. But I'm going to start with something that some of you may have remembered from a few years ago. This is pre-COVID now. This is the whole you own nothing and be happy ad. So let's switch to it here.
But the important thing to realize, we don't.
This is was a product of the World Economic Forum.
It's a symptom.
In 2019, I think.
When you have physical growth in a finite planet, pressures are going to mount to stop the growth. And climate change is one of those pressures. So it's a symptom of our efforts to keep promoting physical growth in a finite planet. You know, ironically, if we solved climate change, we could somehow push a magic button and eliminate.
Let's pause for a minute. Lord Almighty, the technical stuff just bothers me. I don't need all these other things on. I can hear it. I don't see it. Okay, looks like I finally got it. Sorry, I had some other videos queued up. Jamie, see, I need my own Jamie. So, it probably didn't take too much off of. It didn't probably distract too much because the video that we're watching did not actually have anything more than music. But so let's try it again without distracting with all the other stuff. You know what? I think I'm gonna fire myself. I think that's what I'm gonna do. And hire a new me. Okay, here we go again. World Economic Forum. This is a little commercial or ad or some sort of promotional thing that they put out that they thought was gonna just be received greatly. Oh yeah, don't forget the climate change. Okay, so checks and balances that underpin our democracies must not be forgotten. Well, that's funny. Okay, so you'll own nothing, but you'll still be happy. Just sort of a paraphrase of what that was there. And there might have been elements to that didn't seem too objectionable. And you'll note that it does say it's more like predictions of what will happen in 2030. They don't explicitly come out and say this is what we want, but that's what they want actually. So that video was sort of inspired by this article. Here we go. This is off of the World Economic Forum website. So we see there's actually a whole bunch of things here. Again, these are supposedly not things that are part of their agenda. These are things that they just think are going to happen, and I don't necessarily buy that myself. That's kind of where the inspiration of the video more or less came from. For the video they reduced it down to 8, but the one of the source for the idea of you'll own nothing and be happy actually comes from, if I can find it here real quick, pull it off to the side. Here we go. This article right here. This is the where we get the phrase from, and we're going to go through this article just a little bit here. And the author of this is Ida Auken. We'll return to her. Member of Parliament of Denmark, Folketingent, something like that. Okay. Oh, Lordy. Okay. Welcome to the year 230. And in case you're wondering, folks, it's 2025 right now. So they've got a lot of ground to cover in 5 years. So I guess we want to wish them well on that. But this is what they are hoping will happen. Welcome to the year 2030. Welcome to my city, or should I say our city? Our city. I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or clothes. Doesn't even own any clothes. This is sounding great, right? It might seem odd to you, but it makes perfect sense for us in this city. Everything you considered a product now becomes a service. We have access to transportation, accommodation, food, and all the things we need in our daily lives. One by one, all these things became free. So it ended up not making sense for us to own much. Free digitization, free cars. I think they have public transport. No air pollution from the combustions. Everyone's on a bike. We don't need to read the whole article, but let's see here. I love this section. In our city, we don't pay any rent because someone else is using our free space whenever we do not need it. My living room is used for business meetings when I am not there. So Ida, what was her name? Ida Auken. Maybe I'll get that right next time. We are to believe where to go. Here it is. We are to believe that this member of the parliament is going to allow complete strangers to come into her room, her living room, to use it for business meetings when she's out and about. No, that is not going to happen, right? Now they might be able to make your common ordinary person do that, but Ida Auken, the member of parliament, she will be exempted, absolutely. And this is getting this goes to my point, right? There's an us versus them, and Ida Auken is them, and the rules for us will not apply to them. But let's just continue with her utopian vision for what's supposed to happen within 5 years. We don't pay okay. Once in a while, I will choose to cook for myself, but I don't know why, right? The necessary kitchen equipment is delivered at my door within minutes. Since transport became free, we stopped having all those things stuffed into our home. While I keep a pasta maker crammed into our cupboards, we can just order them when we need them. This is like, oh yeah, the circular economy. I guess like they return it or something after that. Products are turned into services. No one has any interest in things with a short lifespan. For the record, I don't have any interest with things with a short lifespan. Bothers me when I have to pay a lot of money for an item over and over again, when in the old days, you bought it once and it lived forever. But anyway, no shopping. It doesn't really matter. AI does much of the work. We suddenly had time to eat well, sleep well, and spend time with other people. The concept of rush hour makes no sense anymore. Blah, blah, blah. So what is part of this has to be, although I did not see it in this article, is some sort of universal basic income, right? Um, whatever it is that she's contemplating, she doesn't even know if she would call it work anymore. It's more like thinking time, creation time, and development time. And then it's interesting about who her biggest concern is here. My biggest concern is those who do not live in our city. Now, I'm going to guess that this our city is a metaphor for all cities. I don't know for sure. Someone should ask her. But she's worried about those we lost on the way. Those who decided that became too much, all this technology. Those who felt obsolete and useless when robots and AI took over big parts of our jobs. Those who got upset with the political system and turned against it. They live different kind of lives outside of the city. Some have formed little self-supplying communities. Others just stayed in the empty and abandoned houses in small 19th century villages. This is her concern, right? This is the thing that concerns her. Now, why would it concern her? I'm a little bit curious about that. It sounds like part of a lot of the dystopian um, stories that are out there of the communities that don't go along with what the elites want, and they worry about them because they're essentially a threat to them, right? For example, in A Brave New World, where you've got the reservation with the wild people, and only very select people are allowed to go, right? Lest the population gets a notion of what other ways of living would be. I'm gonna guess. I don't really know why she's worried, but basically she's talking about me. Now, not because I'm gonna feel obsolete or useless when robots and AI take over my jobs. Because I don't really operate like that. Like at any rate, the I think the thing is like it isn't that I would feel obsolete and useless. It's just that I feel like I have a different source of meaning and purpose than I don't know what she's thinking people are going to be doing. Um, Maybe just like all entertainment all the time. But I actually like going out onto the farm and working the land. Like I don't feel if I had a robot that could be trusted to pick a weed, I probably would actually still use that robot. Actually, to tell you the truth, because I don't much like picking weeds, but I do see meaning and purpose of planting seeds, cultivating them, bringing them to the point where you can harvest it. Uh, but this apparently is a threat. Well, I don't think she understands what it is. I don't think Ida Auken, the author of this, would be able to grow a weed. Actually, she'd probably fail at that. I don't think she knows anything about what the people outside of her city, our city, I don't think she gets it. She doesn't talk about family size or anything here, but I bet you at most she only has one kid. She probably doesn't even have that in this scenario. Someone should look up Ida Auken and see if she has any kids. Be interested to know about this. But she sees us as a threat. And that's kind of where I'm coming with this. So essentially, if we wanted to like paint some understand what I'm this whole us versus them kind of paradigm that I framed it as, that they share that actually. They share that paradigm. This is not something that's just me as an us who feels. They also see this as well, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be city versus the people who live outside the the city. I think there will be people inside cities, I think, who also don't agree with a lot of her idea about, not even owning any clothes. I mean, how does that work? You don't even own any clothes. Like, you have to maybe share underwear, or maybe you will get to own your own underwear. I don't understand. Like, that was way up here. Don't own a car, don't own a house, don't own any appliances or any clothes. I'm sorry. I'm not going to share my underwear. This is not going to happen, and I firmly believe there's going to be a lot of people who side with me on this. See, common ground. They say it couldn't be done, but we found some anyway. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my viewers are people who don't mind sharing underwear, and presumably no one thinks they're going to be able to wear a pair of underwear simultaneously with another person. So they also view it as an us them. And this is not necessarily a political thing. This isn't a right versus left, unless we wanted to like impose labels on it. There's all sorts of people on the left who love being out on the land and having that relationship with the earth. I hate to put it in those terms. We get the old hippies from a long time ago. I know a lot of these people personally, actually, and I have no idea what their politics are, except for that they're not overpoweringly political people. They just like being outside. So this woman is concerned about these rural folk, and probably she should be worried. Maybe she's worried because she knows that actually in a pinch, the rural people could end this utopian vision / nightmare in a second. Like I said, Ida Auken probably could not grow weed if her life depended on it. Probably couldn't. All of the things that she is relying on. She doesn't own a car. They just rent it? Where does it all come from? Where does the food come from? Not in the city. Where does the wood come from for building the houses? Not in the city. Where does the metal come from that is used to make the buses? Not in the city. Where does the oil come from? Well, they won't have oil, right? Because it's utopia. Where does the electricity come? Well, we know they're not putting solar panels in the city, right? They probably should. You can't generate that much electricity from solar panels to provide what everyone needs. It's all going to be coming from outside the city. All the things that she talks about, all the things that she relies on, all the things that these city dwellers dwell on for their owning nothing and being happy. It all comes from the blood, sweat, tears, and labor of people who are outside of the city. That's who she's talking about right here. The producers, the makers, the creators. She's just a taker, right? I'm a maker. She's a taker. Well, I don't want to get bogged down too much on that. So what I kind of want to do in tonight's podcast is kind of like there's just so much material, so many different threads that I could pull out and lay out and show folks to help you understand who we're really up against. It would just go on and on forever, and it would be super scattered, and it's already going to be scattered, just so you know. But the takeaway is they already see it as an us versus them. And there are people who are the initiates, that's them. and there are the people who are to be manipulated and managed. That's us. So the issue here is whether or not like you like that. So whose side are you on, really? Are you on my side in the sense that you think manipulating people and uh, trying to manage the whole lives and affairs of billions of people, are you on my side and you think that's like borderline wicked? Then we can be friends. If you think that no, the people should be managed, the smart people should be in charge. Put the experts in charge. We need experts to tell everyone what to do, and um, we'll call that democracy. Uh, but basically, the scientists decide everything. And oh, by the way, I'm not going to be the one that's sharing my living room anyway, and certainly I'm going to keep my own underwear. If that's that, if that's you, then you're the enemy. You're the enemy to the rest of us. There's like, I would just kind of spitballing here. I don't. What are we at? 7 billion people, maybe. There's probably 5 billion of me, and at most 2 billion of y'all. And I think it's actually a lot smaller than that. Probably a group of people Ida Auken is probably at most like 100,000. It's kind of like H.G. Wells' book. Oh, help me out! The Time Machine, right? It's almost like on display right here, where you got the one group of people who are really sophisticated, but they end up being really weak. Right? They're not able to support themselves or defend themselves, um, and then you've got the slave class. I'm the slave class. They're the owner class. When they say I'll own nothing and still be happy, what they're really saying is I'll own the slaves. And be happy. That's what they're saying, and they just want everyone to kind of go along with it. But they need us. They need the people who know how to make things actually work. Otherwise, they're toast. So, the World Economic Forum. Not something that many people know a lot about, probably. It was been around since the 70s by Klaus Schwab. I have his book here somewhere. Where did I put it? It's over here somewhere. I have his book. And essentially, it's the whole purpose of the organization is to facilitate and coordinate change at an international level. Like that's what they want to do, and they're not even really shy about it. And all like the movers and the shakers of our society are often tied at the hip with the World Economic Forum. A lot of the people that are in politics, both Democrat and Republicans, will show up at the World Economic Forum, or Davos, for example, or the Bilderbergs, which I'll be getting to here shortly. They all go to these places. The Bohemian Grove, although I'm not really that one. That one's even more obscure than all the other ones. Where was I going with that? Oh, so the point is, you have these organizations where they solicit people to come and provide guidance and input to leaders everywhere. That's what the World Economic Forum is all about. But there are other organizations, and man, how am I going to go into this without like coming across totally batshit crazy? So, okay, how about we answer it this way? What kind of influence can the WEF possibly have? Well, the influence that it's going to have is going to be by the shared agreement of the participants and members of that organization to take the agenda of the WEF back into their home countries and implement those principles, whatever those shared agreements are, in their own context, right? And then we know that they're all internationalists, that they want the one world government, the new world era, or what is it? What did George Bush say? It'll come to me a little bit later. But they're so far away from achieving that they're working incrementally, but they have to coordinate, right? They have to get together. They have to have these conversations, and people like you and I are not invited to organizations like this. They don't care about our viewpoint. You've never seen a libertarian invited to a public health convention, for example. It would never happen, because the public health community has zero interest whatsoever in the opinions of people who do not believe that the state should order the affairs of man. Um, and likewise, you're not going to see anyone who is out, like, who does not have a firm belief that the government, the state, or whatnot is the appropriate paradigm for managing all of humanity. It's not going to happen. But they can't. Here's the thing: they can only dribble out in little small portions what their beliefs are and what they really want to do, because, how do I put this? They don't want to be killed. They don't want riots. They don't want to have happen to them some of the more extreme measures that have sometimes fallen upon people who decide that they want to be central planners. So they get together at places like the WF, and they get together at places like the Bilderberg Group. And we're going to talk about that now, I guess. I think I have a Bilderberg meetings. Here we go. So the Bilderbergs. So this is not a conspiracy, right? Like, here's the thing. A lot of this stuff is going to be like waved away as conspiracy. You hear this all the time. But this is their website. Okay? This is their website. So here are the things they talked about at the 69th Bilderberg meeting in 2023. And here are the topics they talked about. Okay. AI, the banking system, China, energy transition, NATO, Russia. Okay, whatever. U.S. leadership. That's interesting. And these are just really general statements. They don't give us the agenda. They don't tell us what they concluded. And until about 2010, we didn't even know who the participants were. But here's the background. This is why I have this page up here. Here, I'll make it smaller so we can get it all on there. It was actually founded in 1954 to foster dialogue. Every year, between 120 and 140 political leaders and experts from industry are invited to take part in the meeting. It's a forum for informal discussions about major issues. The Chatham House rule governs it. Participants are able to use the information, but they cannot identify who the people are. And they're not there as their official capacity, supposedly, and are not bound by the conventions of their office or by pre-agreed positions. In other words, if they're politicians, they don't have to lie. They can just come right out and say, I know most of my campaign platform, that's bullcrap. I don't believe any of that. Here's what I really believe. So that is encouraged here. As such, they could take the time to listen, reflect, and gather insights. There is no detailed agenda, no resolutions are proposed, no votes are taken, and no policy statements are issued. Well, probably the only thing that's true about that is the no policy statements are issued. Although maybe they don't take votes either. In point of fact, we don't know what they really talk about. I mentioned that until 2010, we didn't even know who the participants were. They started listening to participants because people were like, hey, it sure sounds like or looks like this these top elites are getting together to determine the conduct of world affairs, and we don't even know what they're talking about. We don't even know what they're deciding. And so finally, around 2010, they decided to start releasing at least the general topics, which here's an example. I have that highlighted here. And who's involved. But if you think that this collection of 120, 140 political leaders are getting together and not like coordinating policies or whatnot, that's crazy talk, right? That no, that's absurd. Like what a foolish thing to think. But there is a question of continuity. Well, maybe I'll come back to that. The reason why I sort of ventured over into the Bilderbergs is because there's a massive overlap between the people who are a part of the WEF and the Bilderberg and these elites in general, whatever. And who happens to be on our list for 2022, 22? There she is, Ida Auken. Yeah. So not only is she a member of the WEF, penning such beautiful articles like owning nothing and being happy, but she's also hobnobbing with any number of powerful people, in maybe not strictly secret in terms of the fact that we know that she's there, but certainly secret from the point of view of we have no idea what they're talking about. We don't know what they're doing. And when you go through these lists of individuals, it's yeah, it becomes pretty clear that these people are tied together somehow. Like they were chosen for a particular reason. They reflect some kind of common fabric. They have their own common ground, we'll say, and we don't know how they're selected or who selects them. Right? That's not listed anywhere. In fact, let's just go look here. Let's see. Do we know who is in charge of it? Let's see here. Steering committee co-chairs are Henry de Castries, and I think the previous one, the one providing continuity, was a certain David Rockefeller, the American banker, who was a member of the Bilderberg group for a long time, went to every single one of them, all the way back to 54. Yep, right here. I think he was more involved than this little this biographical essay allows. So before I get any further on this, now that we've arrived at a banker, which is kind of where I was going with a lot of this, one of the things that often happens when having conversations about these kinds of things is very, very quickly someone will say, they'll just wave it away and denounce it as conspiracy theory. But in fact, when I was looking up some of this stuff, and trying to get the right links to provide corroboration for what I was talking about. Um, the AI results from Google would like call these things um, conspiracy theories, and maybe I'll wait for another example coming up. But actually, it's real. There is obviously a World Economic Forum. They're obviously having conversations that are not cool. We know a little bit more about what the WEF is saying. Um, and we know that there's groups like the Bilderberg, but groups since 1954 for 70 years. Just doing some quick math, uh, yeah, give or take, for the better part of that organization's existence. We knew that it was meeting, but we never knew what they were talking about, and we never knew who was going. That was all kept from us, completely hidden. But it's not conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy at all. So this is your quote democracy. Um, do you guys know, if you're watching this? Leave a comment if you want. Familiar, like uh, oh, what's the phrase? Um, let's see if I can find it real quick. Not that it's really. Um, well, it's like where in not necessarily in violation of open meetings, um, but like to kind of maybe skirt around them, politicians will meet separately to sort of coordinate instead of doing their deliberations in public in the meeting. They'll basically have agreed upon what they're going to do even before they get to the meeting, right? I think a walking quorum, maybe something like that. Um, I think there's a better phrase for it, but it's not really coming to my mind. Um, but essentially, that's what we're witnessing here. You've got a bunch of people, the elites, the self-appointed elites, who for all we know have decided on a course of action, and they don't much care about what we think about it. They're just going to go out and do it, and they are not all elected officials. This is actually kind of the point. Um, Here we have the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Treasury, United States. This is on the Bilderberg website. Okay. Yeah, there's Ida again. There was a couple names that jumped out. CEO of Shell Oil, director of the CIA. Oh boy. What are they deciding on? What are they talking about? Turkish dude. That last name makes me think he's tied to the president there. The communication headquarters of Britain, Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, automotive. There was maybe it wasn't on this one. The labor union. Okay, labor union. Minister of Foreign Affairs. Palantir. You guys been following what's going on there? Oh, Henry Kissinger. God bless him. He was still alive at that point. You getting the idea? These are a lot of big names in government, but a lot of these people are like private equity type people, right? Shopify. I mean, what do we think they're going to be contributing? What are they adding? What kind of decisions are being made that these people are going to be like flowing through into their own operations. We don't know. We have no idea whatsoever, and we've never known. We've never known. So what is it they want? I just want to return to good old David Rockefeller, because there's continuity. He attended, as far as I could tell from my research over the years, just about every single one. And if you begin learning what the Rockefellers wanted and what they believed in and what they wanted to do, the idea that he would not have conveyed that forcefully to the people who attended is, again, kind of absurd. So where am I going kind of with all this? I mean, this is like rare air, high level conspiracy stuff, right? Except for it, the only conspiracy part is the thinking about, well, what have they decided? There's no question that they're meeting. There's no question that they met. There's no question that there's overlap between these organizations. I gave you just one example, Ida Auken, who is an agenda advisor for the WEF, but also an attendee at the Bilderberg Group, and also a member of the parliament for her country. Yeah, so she has, like all of them, ample opportunity to put her thumb on the scale and be influenced by people who are not accountable to her own citizens, right? And that maybe that's kind of a little bit whatever when we look at some of these political persons. Christian Cinema, yeah, there. Sorry, I love looking at these lists of people. They're not. They're receiving counsel and maybe even marching orders from people who are not their own constituents, right? So there's an intrinsic lack of accountability in all this, at least from the point of view of the us group. There's the them, who knows how they keep each other accountable, but then there's them. There's Google, right? Talk about someone with the ability to put his thumb on the scale. So what do they want? What are they hoping to achieve? This is where we really start getting into some stuff here. Let me pull this off to the side. I told you it'd be a little bit scattered. Maybe I should just close some of these tabs to make it a little bit easier. Where do we start? We'll leave that open. Okay, so this is kind of an awkward entry point into where I'm going with this here, but we're gonna do it anyway. Why not? I see that none of my viewers really care anyway, so let's go with. Let me find it here. I should have it loaded. Maybe I don't. We'll get her loaded.
This is unbelievable.
Okay, so again, like I'm saying, I this all makes sense in my own head. The problem is I'm trying to put it into an hour and a half, what really needs like 6 hours or something. So this is going to be an audio clip from a guy named Eric Pianka. Okay, he was a evolutionary biologist. He died in 2022 or what thereabouts. Okay, and he gave a talk at the Texas Academy of Science. Boy, what year was it? A long time ago now. I think 2005 or 2006. And not every reason for going this far back. But basically, the clip that I have, he's going to be calling for the extermination or the desirability of the extermination of billions of people. And this is Eric Pianka, who was a renowned, credible evolutionary biologist. Okay. He's not some kook. He's not some fruitcake. He was actually invited to speak in front of a whole bunch of other scientists, many of them whom cheered. And I have the whole audio somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But I still have this little snippet here. So let's just play it.
This is unbelievable. Just sit and think about it. How long ago was it we passed 6 billion? We're now almost at 6.5. Another 5 years will be 7. This is unbelievable. Just sit and think about it. How long ago was it we passed 6 billion? We're now almost at 6.5. Another 5 years will be 7. All we can hope for is that the AIDS epidemic kills a lot of Africans. They've all got it. Or even better, that Ebola mutates to be airborne.
All right. Oh, yeah. Jamie, you're ridiculous. So I muted myself, so no one could hear what I was saying. How long has this been? How long ago did I mute myself? I have no way of knowing how long ago it was that I muted myself. Let's see if I can figure it out real quick. All right, I'm watching on another computer. Okay, so I was really worried that I've muted myself a long time ago. Okay, so all right, so that would have been really, really frustrating. Okay, so it's a good thing I had this going up on another computer here. Just a second here. Okay. Should be good to go again. What a pain. So, fortunately, if you're like watching this, you can just sort of like fast forward through it. It's kind of annoying, but Eric Pianka, let's play the audio again. I think part of what I'm going to have to do is for these podcasts, I'm just going to have to sit at a desk and talk and not like show anything or do anything else. Like it's just really hard for me to manage everything. But the thing is like there's I want to be able to corroborate and show and prove that what I'm saying has a substance behind it. Okay, so back to Pianka. Here we go. Good Lord.
This is unbelievable. Just sit and think about it. How long ago was it we passed 6 billion? We're now almost at 6.5. Another 5 years will be 7. All we can hope for is that AIDS epidemic kills a lot of Africans. They've all got it. Or even better, that Ebola mutates to be airborne, and there's a massive epidemic around the planet, killing 90% of us and knocking us back to a population density that's reasonable. Be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. Organized religion is the enemy, man. They have painted the path to get where we are. There it is.
Yeah, so there's some good stuff, right? So he wants AIDS to kill a bunch of Africans, and preferably it would be nice if Ebola would mutate and be passed along airborne and kill 90% of the population. This is in 2006, right? So yeah, a really, really great guy, a scientist. Okay, a scientist. So it must be true, and all these other scientists at this faculty presumably agreed. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. We know that some did not agree because this was leaked. The audio, I don't remember how much of the audio I have, but I was, as you can tell, I was able to get some of it. But essentially, this is like that's the more or less the consensus view of a lot of these scientists. There's just, gosh darn it, too many of us. So again, I go back to this question of us versus them, left versus right. Do you agree with me that wishing for the extinction of 5 or 6 billion people, the deaths of 5 or 6 billion people, is bad? If you agree with that, we probably can have, some common ground, and I would hope that we could kind of rally together, to say, okay, whatever else we can agree on or disagree on, we're going to stand against that. If anyone tries to wipe out billions of people, we are going to stand shoulder to shoulder to oppose that. I would think that we would like that. So I have here some of the sources that he has for this, and there's really kind of some interesting parts to it here. Here we go. Where to go? This is not exactly a full transcript, but it's a transcript of parts of it here. It's interesting. He goes, it doesn't really matter how far we want to go into it here. But he talks about the American dollar is in debt. America's going under. It can happen at any time. That was in 2006. Okay. We're going to come back to that. But it was Dennis Meadows here that is kind of what he's referring to. Can you read that? Dennis Meadows at the bottom there was asked to write this book to do studies in systems ecology. He did it in 1972, and the book was called Limits to Growth. Then in 1992, he and some other co-authors did a Beyond the Limits book. It showed that we are over our carrying capacity. So this is all just science, folks. It's all just science. Okay. So the book, which of course I own, Limits to Growth, Dennis Meadows. Yeah, the original was basically we need to do something about overpopulation and fast. I have lots of books that have that. And maybe you've heard of it, maybe you don't, but the point is I'm trying to draw a line of continuity in thought between this 1972 book, Dennis Meadows, and a renowned scientist who is teaching other scientists at a university about what needs to be done, about what has to happen. Okay. And what needs to happen, according to them, is the population needs to be reduced by a lot. Okay. That's what needs to happen. Now, Dennis Meadows in this book was actually a lot more influential than people realize. When this book came out, Limits to Growth, it came out in America at a time when there was a lot of conversation about overpopulation. Paul Ehrlich was calling for really radical things to be done to curb human population. It was kind of certainly kind of a thing. But what's interesting is the one place that the Limits to Growth really took root was in China. Their one-child policy had owed a lot to their belief, because Dennis Meadows used a computer, which Pianka here references. Where'd it go? Back in the days before PCs, he did a computer model, basically. So science. So China was like, hey, too many people. Science. So let's institute a one-child policy really, really fast. We better do it. And now, 40 or 50 years later, China is like, wow, we made a huge mistake because they're poised to have a population implosion. I wonder what Dennis Meadows would think about that. I mean, he's got to know about it. I would think. At any rate, to say that this book did not have influence is absurd. If it didn't have direct influence here in America, okay, but in other places in the world, it had devastating consequences, huge implications. People died, and a whole generation was not born. So who else was influenced by Dennis Meadows and the Limits to Growth? Well, a certain John Holdren was influenced by this book. Now, if you don't know who John Holdren is, well, that's why we're having these conversations. John Holdren was the, quote, science czar during the Obama years. And if you did not like the idea that Eric Pianka had of having Ebola mutate and killing 5 or 6 billion people, you're probably not going to much like the thoughts that John Holdren said either. Let me just pull this aside here while I'm pulling the wrong thing aside here. And load the too many tabs, so little time. I didn't really pull it very far off, did I? There There he is. Yeah. His book, Ecoscience, which also I have in my possession. Just move this over a little bit. Maybe it's gonna be hard to read on the screen, I imagine. But we'll see what we can do here. Yeah, I mean, he ordered or contemplated forced abortions, mass sterilization, and a planetary army to enforce of all these things. It's the planetary regime, with right down here. And here are some of the quotes. This guy. So again, this is not a conspiracy. This is a guy who sat in a hearing before the Senate and had to answer questions about his textbook. This kind of, again, Eric Pianka called for the extermination of 6 billion people to the Science Academy at Austin, Texas. This is academic. This is a textbook. We're talking about a textbook that was taught, that kids learn from for a whole generation. And now those people are in charge. Okay? Those people are in charge. So anyway, and they think this all just science. So I like this link because it kind of like highlights the stuff. But I'm going to open up the textbook here in a minute. So there's a snippet. It has been concluded that compulsory population control laws, even including laws requiring compulsory abortion, could be sustained under the existing Constitution if the population crisis became sufficiently severe to endanger the society. Well, that's sounds very pro-choice, does it not? Right? This goes back to a lot of the stuff when we look at the major proponents of abortion on demand in the 60s and the 70s. They were not, it was not about choice. It was not about a woman's well-being, and it was not about woman's choice. It was about, we need to have options on the table for reducing the population and fast. Anyway, when he was asked about this, he said something to more or less to the effect that, I don't believe that these measures are really necessary at this point, which is not a comforting statement. Right? It's not a very comforting statement. Basically saying that, the population crisis could get to such a point where he'd be willing to consider it again. Of course, he's not in the government anymore, thankfully. Single mothers should have their babies taken away, or at least the option, or they could be forced to have abortions. This is in a textbook in the United States from the science director, the chief science officer of the Obama administration. Sterilization of humans through the water supply. Here's the actual quote. You can pause it and later and look at it. Yeah. If some individuals contribute to general social deterioration by overproducing children, and if the need is compelling, they can be required by law to exercise reproductive responsibility, just as they can be required to exercise responsibility in the resource consumption patterns, provided they are not denied equal protection. So are you comforted by that? This is in a science textbook. Okay. The government should be allowed to decide family size. Planetary regime is needed. I mean, you get the idea, okay? Right? You get the idea? Now, when I say us versus them, this is clearly them, right? Now, if you're okay with this, if you're okay with elite members of our society openly talking about, and even possibly, who knows, advocating for the government being in charge of deciding how large families should be and whether or not women should be forced to have abortions, that sort of thing, then you're part of them. Okay. But I have a feeling, I have a strong suspicion that this is something that people could have a common ground with, that, the government should not be involved in. Now, I say that, but actually, in point of fact, I've interacted with a fair number of leftists that, even though they are not members of the elite, they still think the government should have a role in deciding things like this. And I don't want to think they're bad people, but they haven't really thought through. Well, I don't really. There's something like the I meant, we talked about Eric Pianka. He said he's hoping that AIDS will wipe out large portions of Africa. I actually sat across from a guy um, in a gym who openly talked about the need to have a abortion as readily as available as possible in Africa. To Well, he didn't say to get rid of the black people, but that was, basically what he was trying to say in his own diplomatic way. And from my point of view, that is an absolutely wicked attitude. But that guy was no Eric Pianka. He was just an ordinary guy, which I think is kind of getting a little bit to the point of where I'm going with this, about how we have these ideologies. We think that we're up against simple economic policies, but in point of fact, you got one part of the population that values human life and another that doesn't. You got one part of the population that values human liberty and another part that doesn't. Now, the part that doesn't is not necessarily the them that I've been referring to. They're not the managers. They're not the central planners. They're just the dupes. They're just the useful idiots. They're the suckers. Because when push comes to shove, Ida Auken, who I talked about later, she's going to be okay. But that guy that I was sitting across, he'd be in the part of the 6 billion that Eric Pianka would be like, nope, want you dead, want you gone. Anyway, so let's open up John Holdren's textbook here. I have it here. If I could just grab it. Oh, there's no way anyone's gonna be able to read that. See if I can, how quickly I can fix that. I'm not going to belabor it too much. Okay. So this is a PDF of Ecoscience. I'm pretty sure that I have the hard copy also. Now, I didn't mean to open up to the family planning section all at once. What I really wanted to call attention to is here we go. Oh, you couldn't see it. Oops. We'll just go right here. I could, yeah, just as an example. I mean, I don't really have time to really delve into it all, but Holdren also draws off of, where I can't see it, the limits of growth, along with a lot of other things. He's getting the same ideas. Let's see if I can find a better quote here real quick. Okay. This is good enough. Right here. This paragraph. Dennis and Donella Meadows, Donella is a co-author, has a forecast of the dismal consequences of continuing various prevailing strategies of resource management and social policies. And we just talked about what social policies he thinks should be on the table. The various have shown most convincingly that many of the various proposed courses of actions may have unexpected and often very undesirable results. The studies of this group were made familiar to the world by the publication of Limits to Growth. This book, once again. So the science advisor of Obama, Eric Pianka, the evolutionary biologist who drew upon it for his own purposes. I mean, it almost makes you wonder, or I would think it would make you wonder, what is Meadows up to these days anyway? Oh, there he is. Oh yeah, I have it cut. This is the World Economic Forum. And we have come full circle. I'm gonna edit this so that there can be no doubt that people are seeing what I'm saying. There we go. There you go. Dennis Meadows, World Economic Forum. Yeah, so that's what they're learning. That's what they're talking about. That's the conversations that they're having, right? What is World Economic Forum? Well, you can a lot of times find out what an organization believes by reading the things that they talk about, like this guy, who's also an agenda advisor for the World Economic Forum. So how many people does Dennis Meadows think the world can support? This guy who spends time going around the world sharing his insight and is a member of this influential international body. Well, I don't know. Maybe somebody has it queued up. Oh yeah, that'd be me.
But the important thing to realize, we don't consider climate change to be a...
We want the other one. Jamie, here we go. Here's this guy. This is from 2019, I think. 2018.
I hope that it can
back it up
supported by this planet, that I know in one way or another it's going to come back down. So I don't hope to avoid that. I hope that it can occur in a civil way, and I mean civil in a...
He means the collapse of society.
Special way, peaceful. Peace doesn't mean that everybody's happy, but it means that conflict isn't solved through violence, through force, but rather in other ways. And so that's what I hope for. That we can, the planet can support something like 1 billion people, maybe 2 billion, depending on how much liberty and how much material consumption you want to have. If you want more liberty and more consumption, you have to have fewer people. And conversely, you can have more people. We could even have 8 or 9 billion probably if we have a very strong dictatorship, which is smart. Unfortunately, you never have smart dictatorships. They're always stupid. So, but if you had a smart...
Right. That's a fair point. dictatorships are all stupid, which is why we should find a way to get the population down to 1 or 2 billion people ASAP. That's that's the general view, and I've given you sort of one thread of this. I have dozens of books, almost all of them by population controllers and central planners. They're not by Christians or conservatives or libertarians or whatever. They're them in their own words, right? I chose like this strand, this part to try to hope to goad people into doing some research and picking up this thread, following it to wherever it goes, and then continue to keep tugging, because you're going to find out that there are a group, very influential and powerful group of people who are standing against us, and they are managing us. They want to manage us, but they don't want us to know that we're being managed. That's the goal. And it's everything. They want to decide how many kids that we're going to have, as few as possible, how we're going to live, whether or not we're going to be able to own a house. They would prefer that we didn't. We started out with Ida Auken, right? We've come full circle, right? We had we'll just bring her up real quick. Oops, wrong video. Get that. At the very beginning, right? World Economic Forum, Ida Auken, they're all the same people. They're all going to the same things. Probably, I would assume that Dennis Meadows was also part of the Bilderberg Group, as well as the World Economic Forum. But since they didn't make the attendees public until 2010, we'll never show definitively. They're all the same people, though. That's the point. All you need is like 1 or 2 books and start pulling threads, and you're going to find that they're all kind of talking about the same thing, and they're all kind of talking to each other, and they are on their own page. And here we're arguing on the ground about property taxes or universal health care or whatever. I mean, pick whatever it is. These people are at an entirely different level. They're thinking about how to get rid of most of the human population in the most civilized way possible. That was in that clip that I just showed. I don't know if you caught it. That was what Dennis Meadows is talking about. Like, how can we do it in a civilized, peaceful way? People might not all like it, but we need to wind down things. At least that's better than Bianca, right? And they're all like that, and we're just sort of plugging away, continuing on as if there are not rich and extremely powerful people conspiring against our wishes without consulting us, without talking to us. There's no democratic process in this. They're just deciding what to do between themselves, and then going out into their various circles, and they're doing it, which is really kind of ironic when they invoke democracy, because they don't really they don't actually believe in democracy. They are the authoritarians, actually. I guess the technical phrase would be they'd be like an oligarchy. They're not elected. They just think they're smarter than the rest of us, and because they have a whole lot of money, they can get together and make things happen. So that's why I think we need to view certain things like this with some concern. Billionaires. So this is from Time Magazine. What's this stupid ad? Get this out of the way. This is a pretty good article, I think, from the point of view of kind of like summarizing what people are talking about and listing some of the names. Here we got, George Soros, right? Bill Gates. Okay. The idea to spray calcium carbonate into the atmosphere. Bill Gates funded that. Jeff Bezos is working on that. There we go. They're all doing it because they know that they can't do it. They can't get away with doing this through the government, because anyone who's actually answerable to the people in any kind of a direct way, like through the electorate, it's they won't get it. So they have to sort of do it on their own. There's Facebook. Yeah, I mean, you should look up this article. It's pretty good. What's funny about it is they are doing it. They're actually like doing these experiments, and trying not to get caught. So this is an example. Of course, they say it was all just a big misunderstanding, but they actually tried to do this. What's the year? Recently. I don't think this is the one I'm thinking of. I think there might be even yet another one, because this one's updated in September. I think there's yet another one. Anyway, they wanted to geoengineer without anyone knowing, with the hopes of later on scaling up. And they funded it, right? They just went right around it. What else? Just did that one. Da-da-da-da. Oh, I seem to have lost it. There was one in Sweden also that they had to. Oops, we're gonna get to that momentarily. I just closed the tab I needed, I think. There was one that was in Sweden as well, and they had to close that when they got caught. So this is the audacity of this class of individuals. They're not interested in acting democratically. It's the exact opposite. They're just going out and doing it. They're trying to do as much as they can that they think they can get away with. See if I can find the tab that I closed here just real quick. Nope, that was the same one. So another thing of concern that these people are funding are self-spreading vaccines, right? Now, I want you to just remember that earlier in this podcast, I brought up Eric Pianka, the scientist who hoped that Ebola would mutate and become contagious, or become airborne and kill billions of people. Imagine those people now, and they're all the same people. I've tried to. I hope I've established that they're all Bilderberg people, WEF people, banker people, whatever. They're all the same people. If they decide that they wanted to use this technology, if they've decided that there's no hope of persuading people through the actual democratic process to change the way they operate, why wouldn't they on their own self-finance a self-spreading vaccine that would say, I don't know, make everyone infertile, for example? Bill Gates is on record making a statement that he had to explain away later on. Maybe he was being honest. I don't know, but about having a vaccine that could be birth control that basically acted like a vaccine. Anyway, when you've got people who believe that there are 5 or 6 billion more people and they've given up on the democratic process, and they're already on record going out there and financing secret projects to dim the sun, like sure low key at this point, right? If they just decide, hey, it's we've got to a point where it's too late, there's nothing that we can do through the normal means, we just have to act. They have the power, they have the money, they've got the people all over the place who share their views. Members of people who've gone to the Bilderberg maybe got their marching orders there. Members of the WEF. These are not the kinds of people we want designing or talking about self-spreading vaccines. We just don't want it. It's bad. Which kind of brings me to one of the other points. Well, what are we going to do about it? But I don't know if I'm going to really have time to get into it. In fact, I'm now well over my time, and I'm still kind of like frustrated at the tech issues that I once again had. But I feel like I should nonetheless take some time in a scale back way, and maybe I'll do this again and more in depth. But the financial system is part of the apparatus for subduing and enslaving Americans and people all over the place. $37 trillion in debt. And I guess I don't really, because of how long it took me to get into the other stuff, I'm just going to really touch on it quickly. The Federal Reserve is not actually, no, I'm not going to, it'll take forever to get into all of it. Here's what I'll say. Just a couple things. By far, like the Bible on understanding what the Federal Reserve is and how central banking and central planning is tied together to hurt people is this book right here. Can you? The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. And he is on X, actually. But this book explains what the Federal Reserve is and how big banks, in it, primarily in the President of the United States, has undermined the wealth of average Americans for now well over 100 years. And this is why I called attention to David Rockefeller earlier, who was one of the bankers that was maybe not involved in the formation of the Federal Reserve, because he would have been not even born yet. Well, no, I take it back. No, Federal Reserve was 1913. So yeah, he wasn't even born yet. These people and David Rockefeller, big banker, putting all of the Rockefeller money towards all the projects, all the stuff that we've been talking about, and also a member of the World Economic Forum, the Bilderbergs, interacting and going to every single one of their events until his death. Big banks, central planning, all the same kind of thing. And I feel like we're on the verge of something with the whole debt situation. So I'm just going to give you, again, I'm just going to be real brief about it because I've gone so much longer than I wanted to. A really good book that covers like what happens to nations and areas that go into the kind of massive debt that we're in is this one. This time is different. 8 centuries of financial folly. And we are well into the era of folly at this point. And I call your attention to something that seems to be unfolding right now before our very eyes. The Federal Reserve's gold revaluation strategy, which goes back to a couple of clue points, whatever. The Federal Reserve itself has talked about revaluing gold, and you might not know anything about this. You might not know what that is, which is really kind of one of the points about this whole thing. You probably never heard about Eric Pianka. Maybe you heard about the World Economic Forum. If you ever heard about the Bilderberg Group, you probably just figured, well, it's just conspiracy. You probably didn't even know it was actually real. until I showed you that, yeah, it exists. They have meetings. We know about it. Um, but you have to know. You've got to learn. You've got to get into this stuff and make your own conclusions, because otherwise, God only knows what these people are going to do to us. Because they do not see themselves as being like us. They're the people that C.S. Lewis talks about in The Abolition of Man. Also in That Hideous Strength, perhaps. I'm giving you some places to kind of go and think about this. They think they're more than human. Actually, they think they're. I don't want to say the Ubermensch of Nietzsche or anything, but they really think that we are the lower class. We're the slave class, really. They're like giant piggy banks, and they've been using inflation to reduce the value of the dollar for 100 years. And instead of people getting mad at the central planners, we get mad at each other. Okay, and that's just absurd. These are the people who are causing all of our problems right here. Um, just as a quick example, to try to, man, I'm it's taking too long. College education, tuition, it costs too much. But only 40 years ago, you could work even just a part-time job and have enough money to pay for tuition. So what happened? Well, the government got involved. And when I say the government, I'm not talking about uh an actual healthy self-government model which answers directly to the people with representatives that are honest. I'm talking about a government that is run by people like I've discussed in this podcast. People who think we need to change the whole structure of human society and preferably get rid of as many humans as possible. And so what they do, the government got involved, and just as a very quick example, hypothetical, more than a hypothetical, but like a nail, I don't know. So they would say, hey, we're going to support education by giving $4,000 grants to students. And then the universities say, hey, all of our students are now going to get an instant $4,000 from the government. So what do the universities do? What are they going to do? I wonder. Oh, they're going to raise their tuition by $4,000. So the money that they just got from the money that was printed out of nowhere from the Federal Reserve is going into their hands, but the universities are instantly raising their tuition. So it's not just that they're at a net loss, but now the kids are even more debt than they were before, because they still, yeah, they have the grant, but they still didn't have enough to cover the tuition. And so then they do it over and over again, right? They raise the amount of grants again, and the colleges just raise their rates again. And you can't blame them, because it's how do you have to have a way to a college does not have the physical capacity to take every person who enters, right? You have to sort them out by a variety of different metrics, and one of those metrics is, can these people afford to actually go here? And so you raise the tuition, and that sort of becomes a filter that blocks certain people from coming out. And so what do we see now? We see college tuition prices just through the roof, and everybody's running around saying, "Oh, we got to forgive you college debt," or they'll say, "Oh, I wish we were like Europe, where we had free education," or whatever. But all you have to do is go back 4 decades, and maybe it wasn't free, but all you had to do is work part-time, and you could have just paid for it. The reason why it's the way it is right now was because they wanted to hurt us. They wanted us to be in debt in this way. And they want us to argue about whether or not we should have free education, instead of, hey, maybe we should get the government out of the education business altogether and stop artificially bloating these prices, and it whether it's education, it's healthcare, it's housing. I'll talk about housing just real quick, and then I'm going to be done with it. Um, Housing is a great example. They've been printing money out the wazoo, so much money that BlackRock and Blackstone, Blackstone being the big one on the real estate issue, they don't even have enough money to buy stocks. Let me rephrase that. They are already so far invested in stocks that even they are like, well, it would not be wise to invest all of our money in stocks. Where else should we put it? Well, we'll start buying single family homes, these like major hedge funds and whatnot. Well, what happens? What happens when all the giant investment groups buy single family homes? Supply and demand. The price of the homes go up, and the people who are on the bottom, the people who are paying a lot for their college tuition, can't afford to buy all the homes. But where did the money come from for people like Blackstone or whatever to buy these homes? Well, they just went to the Federal Reserve or the big banks, and they borrowed billions of dollars at 0.05%, something that none of us could do, and they could afford it, and they did it. So all this money just floating around. We've got this massive debt. The dollar has decreased. It's all the same people involved, right? If we were to look up people in the Federal Reserve or the Treasury Department, they're going to be in the Bilderberg list. In fact, we saw one already earlier, right? Right, here's one right here. Here's a member of the U.S. Treasury. I thought I saw another one. I guess it doesn't really matter. They're all the same people, is my point. Okay? So the reevaluation, what this means is it appears that there's a plan in motion, and it's escalating right now. And check out the gold and silver prices, and you'll see what I mean. Check out the amount of gold and silver that central banks appear to be taking possession of, the millions of ounces a day, every month. The revaluation strategy appears to be that they're just going to buy fiat, arbitrarily declare that gold is worth not the 4,000-ish that it is now, but it'll be 20,000. And by the stroke of a pen, they'll be able to balance their ledgers. But in doing so, they will almost instantly devalue the U.S. dollar overnight. I don't know what that's going to do to us exactly. I'm kind of working through that as we speak. But I'm putting you on notice. I'm trying to raise the awareness that there are people who are operating at a whole nother level than what we at the right versus left level are operating. And maybe you're with them. Then we're not. We can't be friends. Fair enough. But I tend to think that most people, a lot of the Democrats even that I would normally disagree with on a lot of other things, are going to agree with, hey, we should not enslave a whole nation to debt, and we should not try to kill or hope for the death of 6 or 7 billion people. Those are things that we should be able to agree on, I would think. And then from there, maybe we could chart a different path forward politically. And I'm now so far along, I don't want to take the time to explain what that might look like, or what it ought to look like. I told you at the beginning it would be kind of scattered, and it was scattered, and I had some technical problems that ticked me off, but they were not too bad, I suppose. I think that I'm going to have to revisit my earlier pondering that, maybe I just need to ditch some of the multimedia until I can actually afford to have somebody else run it, and just have me just sit up here and just talk. I can do that, but then I get thrown off when I have to load a video or whatnot myself. But that's for me, I suppose. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm about 20 minutes beyond what I wanted to talk. Thanks for watching. If you've watched this far, really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Leave some comments. I'll reply to them. Be glad to. And I guess that's it. You guys all have a good night. And with that, we are done. And I need to find this.